Well, Happy New Year and happy Profit First Allocation Day. I messed up Profit First last year. My current allocation percentages got off track from what the target allocation percentages were. And now I'm doing that review and analysis and trying to make sure that I understand what happened and how to fix it. That's what I want to talk to you about today. And just to let you know, if this is your experience with Profit First, remember that Profit First is a journey, it's a habit, not an event, and that you're really not getting it wrong. So I'm saying I got Profit First wrong last year, and I really didn't, because this is a formula that we're using, and it's one that's workable. It's fluid, and you're looking at things as an environment is changing because we're businesses. Everything does not stay static. We have cyclical events that happen in our businesses. Sometimes our revenue goes up and down. And so all of these things we just take into account and remember that this is a journey and not just a one-time thing that we've either nailed Profit First or we haven't. The interesting part about Profit First is it's super simple. Mike gives you a formula. These are the percentages that you should put into each of the accounts, and then you follow it. And one of the things about that formula is it has different income brackets. So if you're kind of straddling an income bracket, you have to keep in mind that as your revenue goes up or dips down below that bracket, those allocation percentages are changing. And the good news is I was completely aware that we were straddling a revenue bracket, and that we were looking at having to shift some of those allocation percentages as we went through 2022. The other thing that I did, and this is one of the things that people talk to me about regularly, is I invested in some more operating expenses and some more help. I pulled in an executive assistant to help me manage some of the tasks. If some of you have been following for long, you know I went through the Clockwork boot camp. And part of that was getting some of these tasks off my plate that I didn't need to be doing myself. So honestly, 2023 is the year that I am trying to work myself out of a job. I want everything built in systems so that we can serve our clients consistently and well, and that it doesn't depend on me and the availability that I have to serve them. So that's a big goal for 2023. We've been working toward that for years. And part of that was toward the end of 2022, in the last couple of quarters, I pulled in some help, an executive assistant, to take some things off my plate. It has been amazing, and it was a great move. What I didn't do was offset the extra expenses with reducing my salary. So I overpaid myself in 2022, but I kind of knew that was happening as we were doing it. What I was hoping was that the revenue would come in to offset the extra expense. But like I talked about in reviewing your marketing budget, the investment was immature. So, what I can tell you is the investment was good. It freed me up to do a lot more marketing and sales activities, which is exactly what we needed. And that investment allowed our revenue to even out. So I can already see some results coming into play here. Instead of things being up and down and up and down as I sort of market and don't market, market, don't market, because that was sort of the trend. I would do marketing activities for a little bit and then I would work because leads would come in, and then I would do marketing activities and then I would work. And doing that made our revenue really uneven. Hiring an executive assistant has really helped me smooth that revenue curve out. And I do believe, looking at the last few months of the year, that we are starting to trend slowly toward growth on a regular basis. So it's smoother, and I can see growth starting to happen. The growth did not overtake the extra expense yet. So it's It was an immature investment at the time. It didn't do the ROI immediately. That just doesn't happen. People have to get trained, and activities don't pay off immediately. Usually, sometimes they do, which is awesome, but they don't always. And it's more likely that you're going to start making an investment and you're not going to see a return for 12 months or more. So that we're starting to see a return. The return didn't offset the expense. And so I paid when I look at owner's pay, that amount is over the allocation percentage. That should have been the target based on the revenue that we had, because operating expenses had gone above the target allocation percentage as well. And our real revenue dipped down a little bit because I offloaded some things to subcontractors again. So that's in that whole cost of goods sold before I even have an allocation percentage. So all of these things working together, which are going to be great for 2023, means that we were off budget for 2022. And the fact that I can explain what happened means that I have a win. So even though I said I got it wrong, I win because I understand why things are working the way that they're working. And I also know they're going to pay off in 2023. I can already see that momentum starting to build. And I believe that it'll come within the first quarter or so. What I'm doing for 2023 is, first, I do think every year, and really every quarter this should happen, but every year thoroughly, review your current allocation percentages versus the target allocation percentages. So great news about Profit First, again, is it's super simple formula. If you're in a certain revenue bracket, Mike is saying you should target this percentage for owner's pay and taxes and profit and operating expenses. And if you look at your books and your financials, it should be really easy to separate those things out. How much did you pay yourself? How much in operating expenses? How much profit did you make? And how much did you put in taxes to pay toward your tax bill? Okay, so as you have a target there, those are your target allocation percentages, which you can find in his book based on your revenue number, your total revenue. And then you look at your current and compare it and look at the delta. So see what's different between what you're currently at versus what the target is. And as long as you can explain it, you're winning the game here. Hey there, sorry to interrupt, but are you liking this content? Is it something that you're benefiting from? Are you learning something and growing a little bit from this content? If the answer to any of those questions is yes, do me a favor, hit that like button so the algorithm will send this out to more people just like you so that we can all build more profitable businesses and do more life together. Thanks for watching. And that you have a plan for moving forward. So I think it's kind of two things there. You can explain what happened, and then you have a plan for moving forward. And what these target allocation percentages do for us, or what the current allocation percentages versus the target allocation percentages do for you and have done for me, is let me know when something's off track. So like I'm telling you, I did it wrong, quote unquote. Really, it's just telling me that I overpaid myself for 2022 revenue for what we did. And I overpaid in operating expenses. But I realized that those were investments that I were making them. Those are investments that I was making that I know are going to pay off in 2023 because I have a whole plan around increasing our revenue and also adjusting those expenses in time. So what I'm going to do now is just adjust my pay down slightly. It's not a huge decrease. And the good news is I had built my income based on what I needed plus. So I have some window of opportunity to adjust those numbers for my income on payroll. And also I'll reap the benefits every quarter as I do quarterly distributions from the profit account. And that number grows as the business is more profitable. So as revenue increases and expenses decrease, then my profit distribution increases. And so it all comes out in the wash, hopefully to my good if I'm growing in 2023. So I'm just taking a minute before the next payroll in January, and I'm tuning that payroll expense down just slightly for myself. And also, I've taken a look at our expenses again. If you've followed at all for any period of time, you know that I constantly look at our expenses. But the good news about comparing your current allocation percentage to your target allocation percentage is I can tell the exact dollar amount that I need to either move the revenue up or pull the expenses down. And the fact of the matter is that I made those investments, they're immature. So they're not necessarily showing a huge payoff yet. I think that is building toward the payoff. But in the meantime, that revenue is not bumping up to the level that it should for the expenses. So I'm going to decrease some of those expenses at the beginning of the year so that to let that the revenue increase catch up. And that's what we believe will happen in 2023. So my encouragement to you today is number one, review your current allocation percentages against your target allocation percentages, which you can find in the Profit First book that Mike Michalowicz wrote. The second piece is to do the deep dive and give yourself some explanation for what happened. You're probably, unless you're following Profit First perfectly, which is difficult to do because there are constantly things changing, then you're not going to be right on the money on each of the accounts, especially if it's the first couple of years that you're putting this into practice, or if you're making adjustments. So you're adding accounts, like we're adding a marketing account this year into the mix. So as you're adding accounts, the targets might look a little bit different. And if there's a delta between your current allocation percentages and your target allocation percentages, according to the Profit First formula that Mike wrote in his book, then make sure you can explain it to yourself. Like, okay, that's exactly the amount that I paid myself extra, and that's the overage there. And I paid myself more than I originally should have because I did this thing, like hire an executive assistant. So that increased the operating expenses and I didn't take it out of my owner's pay. So if you have an explanation that makes sense, again, you're winning. So number one, compare. Number two, make sure you can explain it. And number three, adjust. This is the time that it's perfect to make that adjustment, pull that owner's income down, or pull out some of those expenses. This is a great time to call out those subscriptions that you don't need anymore, that you signed up for. And the really funny thing about subscriptions, and I've had a couple of these moments this year as I've been looking through my expenses, and even on my personal subscriptions, I've looked through and been like, I don't really need that, but what if I want to use it in a month or two? And I feel some sense of loss and like I'm missing out if I get rid of that subscription. So just know that that is typical. That is a typical response, that when you carve out an expense, you feel a sense of loss and you hesitate to cut the expense. And knowing that that psychologically is happening to you, it makes it easier to go ahead and make the decision no, and realize that you can always put that subscription expense back, or whatever expense it is that you're talking about. You can always add it back. But right now you're putting the brakes on and you're pulling it out so that you don't have that overage in that column, like an operating expense. You're not going over the amount that you should based on the revenue that you're bringing into the business. So those are some things I'm doing. I did a review of current allocation versus target allocations. I explained to myself what happened. I already knew that was going to happen, but I explained what was happening. And now I'm making adjustments for 2023 until the revenue follows for the investments that I made for 2022. Now, again, that's something you have to keep an eye on. Does the investment pay off in the end? And I believe it will. I believe I'm already starting to see that my investments are paying off. But if they didn't, then I've pulled things down to the new level until the revenue increases. And if the revenue never increases as a result of these investments I make, I know I've got to chuck them. I know those are not the right investments that I should be making, because investments should produce a return. And so that's what I'll be following and looking at for 2023 to make sure that the investments I made in 2022 end up paying off in 2023, or else they get cut. And you have to be just surgical about it. You have to cut it out if it's not ending up doing a return for you. Now, returns can look like a number of things. They don't have to be financial necessarily. Freeing up my time has made it worth what I'm pulling down in income. So I love that I have this extra time to do the marketing and sales activities, and sometimes to decide not to do anything because I was working harder than I should have been before I brought in the executive assistant. So the good news is now I can take a few more breaks because she has it covered. And that's worth the investment to me, even if it ends up not paying off financially. The good news is it already is paying off financially. It's already smoothed out our revenue, and I can see that growth beginning to happen, which is very exciting. So an encouragement to you is just, it's never going to be perfect. It's a journey. Again, event, not a habit. And sorry, it's a habit, not an event. Oh no, I totally messed that up. It is not an event. It's not a one-time thing. It is a habit. So it's a journey, it's a process, and it's never going to be perfect. And we're just looking at things and evaluating them and adjusting them along the way. So take a look at yours, compare your current to the targets, understand why differences are happening, make adjustments, and go forward and be profitable in 2023. I'm here to help you build a profitable business so that you can do more life. The more life we all do, the better the whole world will be. And I look forward to helping you and me do more life in 2023. All right, talk to you guys later. Happy New Year. Bye. Oh my gosh, you reached the end. Congratulations and thanks for watching. One quick question before you go. Did you find this interesting? Do you think someone else that you know could benefit from the information you heard here today? Well, do me a favor, hit the like button and subscribe, and hit that bell so you can get notifications for when more of this information comes out. By hitting like, it means that this content goes out to other people just like you who might also be able to benefit from this information and can build a more profitable business so they can do more life. All right, thanks for watching. Bye.